Hey, this is Jesse Bourne. Welcome back to the Puzzle Box office. Thought it's about time for me to make a shop tour video and bring everybody up to speed on the latest innovations in here. So I'm just going to start on one side and sweep through and show you everything going on in here and the latest puzzle box we've got going, which is the Sundial puzzle. So stay tuned for all of that coming up soon. Okay, so as you walk in the shop, the first thing we run into is the air compressor. So I've had this for 5 or 6 months. This is just a single stage air compressor, not a two stage. So it only goes up to 140 PSI about, but that's all I need for my machines. So right now the CNC router takes air, my new lathe takes air, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And we're using air now to run our lacquer gun for the Sundial. So the air consumption has gone much higher in the past year, and I just hope that I didn't buy too small of a unit for the next 5 years. But you know, time's gonna tell. It's definitely a good brand. Pretty happy with the purchase. Then over here, this is the shipping desk. This is also where I have the new computer monitor set up, running off of the computer Steve built for me. We'll get to that in a minute. Here's where we package and ship all the puzzles. We also have a printer, we have a label printer as well. Packaging stuff underneath here, some shelves and everything. Right now, I'm working on the Sundial puzzle box. So this is the fusion file, and we sketched all the parts for every single box, which is over 100 parts per box. And then we're able to run them on the CNC Mill. A lot of my work is spent right here at this desk, working on the fusion file and running parts on the CNC Mill. Moving on, got a new computer. My brother Steve built this for me. It's got 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's got a really good graphics card. It helps to run this program because this program eats up a lot of computer space. So you need a really good computer. Moving over, got another computer for doing fusion work. This is the laptop that runs the CNC control for the machine. We design the part here, we design the program in this computer. We throw it in a USB in this computer, and then from this computer it runs into the CNC and actually tells the router where to move, how fast to cut. The latest and greatest thing about this CNC mill, which I've really enjoyed it, but there's lots of little hiccups that I had to solve, different things with the stepper motors and how the program works and where 0 is and what the machine reads. I'm pretty much past all that, so now I'm on the better side of the learning curve here, and things are going pretty easy. But I want more tools added. So I'm building this tool rack, which will lift up like this pneumatically, and I'll just have 8 tools in this row so that we can machine over top of the tools. And then as soon as the machine comes all the way up to the end here, it'll trigger a solenoid and a new rack of tools will lift up so that our machine can use 8 more tools, which we really needed to use in the Sundial box because there's lots more tools needed to run that box because it's much more complex. Okay, come on over here and I'll show you what I've got going over here. So these are 2 4th axes that I have set up on the CNC mill, and I wired them together this week, and I didn't even know if they were going to both turn simultaneously. But I wanted to give it a shot because if I only have one plugged in and I turn this, then when I want to turn this one, I have to turn the machine off, I have to plug in this axis, I have to turn the machine back on, re-home it, retouch off the tool, come over here, re-zero it. And that's a whole lot of extra work that I didn't want to have to go through every single time. So I just took the cables and I just wired them both to the same axis port on the machine, and now they both are turning 360 degrees simultaneously. Pretty cool side note is that Everett built this steel tray for the lathe here, and the reason we're doing that is because this aluminum was flexing a little bit as we tighten up on the part, and that creates a small deviation in the diameter of our part, and we don't want that, so we bolted it down to the steel tray, and with these tall angle iron sides it keeps it from flexing so that our part stays uniform. The dust collector been the same. We have 2 dust collectors now, one here sucking air from the machine, and these 2 machines here, and then we have another dust collector over here, which is going to the jointer and the 2 table saws. And I don't want to have to run the piping through here because I know I'm going to be out of the shop pretty soon anyway. So to buy all the steel piping would be upwards of a few $1,000s, and I thought it just simpler to buy a small unit and just hook it up with the flex hoses. So that's what I opted to do, and it's working out fine for me. So this is a helical head joiner. It's an 8-inch. I use this thing all the time, every single day. Before the boards go on the CNC, they need to be super flat so that the vacuum is able to suck them down to the table and hold them down while the router carves over top of them. And this is a Powermatic joiner. It's been working out really well for me. So Everett gets a stack of veneer. He grabs some of this veneer here. This is just poplar for the underside, and then he grabs some ipe, or ipe as some people tell me it's pronounced. Puts it over top of this, puts it in a form, one of these forms here, and then we stick it in the vacuum bag. We turn the vacuum on. It sucks all the air out of it. It sucks this part down into a curved panel, and then the glue dries in that position. And then when it pops out, it's all curved like this. And we're using Gorilla Glue, which is a polyurethane glue, and it holds this shape really well. After it's glued up in that curved shape, we bring our curved piece over to the 4th axis here. We bolt it down right here on our 4th axis. And then this router comes over and will carve over top of the part as it is spinning. And then we end up with a piece that looks like this. And this is our carving, and we designed it all in the Fusion on the computer here. And this is what the outside of the Sundial box is gonna look like. Using the planer somewhat, but not as much anymore because the CNC router is doing a lot of the planer's job. We use the sander quite a bit. And again, we have this hooked up to dust collection, which is super important because we keep a lot of the dust out of the air so that we're not breathing it and it's not getting into the computers and all of that. The table here, which is the outfeed table for the table saws, we just have a bunch of tools here. Everett cuts veneer here. This is a sled that Everett built. This is for cutting veneer. This is just made out of MDF, but we cut all the veneer on this sled, and it's important because the veneer is so thin, you need it really well supported or else it's gonna break. We have, a piece that fits real tight underneath, and then we clamp it down, just hold it down like this with a piece over top, push it through the saw. This is the buffing station. We do a lot of buffing to weather pieces, make pieces look old, kind of have the driftwood effect. Dust collection system, which is controlled by a foot pedal. Right now we have the drill press down here because we just moved the mini mill up top here, doing some milling for second ops on the CNC. A little bit cramped on space, it'd be nice to have a little bit more counter space. Nova drill press. We're using this all the time. You can get this from like Lee Valley or some other supplier. Okay, so this is our sanding mop, which we use to deburr all of the carvings that come off the mill. And it's nice because it gets in there and cleans up all the little fuzz. Okay, moving on, this is just our bench setup. We've got a lot of small hand tools here. This is where all the assembly takes place, all the glue ups. Yeah, we got the mini mill. It's not CNC, it's just controlled, but that's helpful for making some of the parts so that we don't have to make everything on the CNC. We can just come over here and manually cut out a part. Yeah, we got an arbor press. We have a chisel sharpener, Work Sharp 3000. Sharpens your chisels up real easy. Burns model table saw. This is a mini table saw. It's really nice for doing really thin cuts in wood for really small work. This is my dad's mortiser, which I don't really use like a mortiser, but on occasion you need like a square corner cut in something or some detail work, and that's what we would use that for. All the chisels, all the hand tools here, very nice to have them on magnetic holders. This is the 3D printer which I got, and we've been using it like almost every single day making new parts or new fixtures, and so it's been extremely key in this newest design. Usually we design everything we print, like these little forms here. He's got perfect little forms that fit around the part so that he can wrap them, and they will stay, that glue up is going to stay in the same dimension that we're looking for. That's super key because you don't want a lot of variation in your glue ups. You want everything to be glued in perfectly. This is another thing we use a bunch. Really helpful. Again, it's on a foot switch so that we can turn on the vacuum and the sanding disc at the same time. Everett's doing a bunch of stuff with gluing up the panels, and so he made this little jig to hold the veneer down as he glues it. And we use the bandsaw on occasion. It would be nice to get a big resawing bandsaw so that we could do really small kerfs and still save on wood, because wood's getting quite expensive. Yeah, the saw stop table saw is working out really nice. I also have this unisaw here, which is nice in its own way. It's a little different. I have the digital readout fence here. This is a CNC Mill. Again, like, I've been kind of too busy in the past couple of months. That's why Josh is working for me. He's been buying all the tooling for this, figuring out how to communicate with the Fagor control, buying all the stuff for our 3-phase power conversion. It's gonna work out really good because I've got a lot of parts planned for it. For one thing, our dowels, our 1/8 inch dowels and 1/4 inch dowels, I just buy them stock from, online eBay stores. And this is what a 1/8 inch dowel looks like, and this is what a 1/4 inch dowel looks like. But the problem is there's a bit of variation in these dowels, and when you actually go to glue them in the hole, you'll have just a little bit of slop, and there'll be a little bit of glue that seeps out onto the other side. I just don't like that variation, so that's why I got this machine, because it can make dowels like this out of any wood that we buy here. And we can also thread parts. We could have threaded screws. This is a profiling tool. We have a couple of collets for boring bars or drills. We're going to put a part off tool back here. One of the bigger challenges too is figuring out how to communicate with it, because this is an older control, and our USB has got to be able to connect with all the different pins in here, and we've got to figure out the software and all that. Josh is pretty close, so we're pretty close to be able to communicate with it. The other thing is this machine has a 3-phase motor, so it runs off a 3-phase power, and this shop doesn't run off a 3-phase power, but you can make a converter, and so that's what we're going to do. And Josh has already made a converter for some of his tools, so he already knows all the ins and outs of that. And so he bought capacitors. I picked up this motor. This is a 3-phase 10 horsepower motor. And what you do is you hook up your 220 to it, and you use the different start capacitors and run capacitors to make this motor spin, and then you hook up your 3-phase motor to this motor, and it creates the power for your 3-phase motor. I don't really understand it, but the nice thing is that with a 10 horse motor like this, if we got another 3-phase machine, this motor would be able to power this machine plus another or 2 more machines on top of that are 3-phase. Okay, so that brings you up to speed on the latest in the shop. We're having a good time making puzzle boxes in here. I'm super busy every single week, working a lot of hours, but the boxes are coming out really nice. But thanks for watching, have a good day, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.